me, my name is Jono Bacon. I work at Canonical as the Ubuntu Community Manager. And there I lead a team of 4 people to basically build a fun and inclusive community. And each of these people works in different areas. But for years I've been interested in community. I've been interested in how we dissect and understand it and share it with each other. And I've always had a very, very firm belief that no person, company, or project should ever have a monopoly on community. Community is something that we as people share with each other. So in that mind, I've worked on a couple of other things. One is The Art of Community by O'Reilly, a book that I published a little while back that some of you may have. And the other thing is, publishing one person's thesis of how a community should be built is one thing, but to me, we need to get people together. We need to get community leaders together in an environment where they can share best practice and the skills that they've learned as well. So the Community Leadership Summit was the last weekend, and I can see a bunch of people who were there, so check it out next year as well. So I want to be honest with you. I'm really stoked to be doing a keynote right now. Look at this stage. I mean, this is amazing. But you know, when O'Reilly said, you know, we'd like you to do the keynote, and I started thinking about it, and once I'd stopped chirping, I actually started thinking about what was involved, and I realized it's actually really hard. It's really hard. And it's hard for a few reasons. Reason number one is it's 15 minutes. Some of the songs I like are longer than 15 minutes. It's not a lot of time, and my general approach is to throw as much stuff at the wall as you can and see how much sticks. So this means I can throw less at the wall, which means less is going to stick. The other thing is that when O'Reilly said, okay, you're going to do it, they asked for a presentation title. Now, I did the thing that every speaker does, and that is I thought of a very generic title that gave me enough flexibility so that when I made the slides 3 days before the presentation, I wasn't too committed. So anyway, I called this the future of community. Generic Orama. You know, it talks about community, which is what I'm interested in, and it also talks about the future. You know, it puts me in this kind of fortune-telling position, which is good. Unfortunately, this was a fatal flaw, because I used the word future. Okay? Now, it may not seem a fatal flaw, but the reason why it's a fatal flaw is because every single time anybody ever tries to predict the future, they're always wrong. I'm still waiting for my damn hoverboard. So now I'm in a situation where I've got 15 minutes to talk about something I'm going to be wrong about. Welcome to my world. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about my other presentation, which you should go to. It's going to be called A New Era of Community Management. This is 40 minutes long. There's no songs that I listen to that are 40 minutes long. If you're interested in the growth of community management and the history of community management and where we're going in the future and how it intersects with companies who are investing in it and how the profession's growing out, if you have an interest in how to build a community, then you should definitely come to this. And that's going to be over in E145 at 1040. If that isn't enough, I'm going to be bribing you all. I'm going to be giving out some free books of The Art of Community as well to some of you. So if you want a book, come along. I looked at the schedule. All the other sessions are terrible. So yeah, that's the wisest choice. So anyway, back to the future. Enough of the present. Let's talk about the future. So as I say, when people predict the future, they're almost always wrong. I think what is more interesting is when we talk about informed trends, when we look at things that are happening right now that can inform us to make the best decisions that we can make in the future. And people have been doing this for years. I mean, you know, O'Reilly as an organization is a great example of this. O'Reilly evaluates what's going on in the industry and makes a series of decisions about what they think is going to happen in the future. This isn't fortune telling. This is assessing what's going on and defining an informed trend. And the thing is, community's been around for thousands of years. I mean, we always associate community with open source and free software. That's just one instance of community. But it's actually tribal. I mean, it goes back thousands of years to when people would form tribes. And there's a series of challenges that these tribes face. You know, how do I find food? How do I cook it? How do I keep the members of the tribe healthy against illness? How do we entertain each other? How do we procreate? All of these different things were questions that would face the health of the tribe. So what happens, and I know I'm stating the obvious here, but what happens is people try out different things, they try different experiments, and some of those experiments work and some of those experiments don't work, but the ones that do work are shared with the rest of the tribe, and that's basically how it works. So what happens is we get these ad hoc parcels of information that are shared with other people, and that's how the knowledge inside the tribe grows. But then, of course, the knowledge in that tribe might not be shared with another tribe. So even thousands of years ago, we were having silo effect, okay? So we have a tribe. These are our leaders. Some of them are a lot more tribal than others. These people, none of these people set out to be, I mean, for those of you who don't know these people, it's Richard Stallman on the left from the Free Software Foundation, Jimmy Wales from Wikipedia, Ian Murdoch from Debian, and you may recognize the guy on the right is Linus Torvalds, who founded Linux. These people never set out as experts in community. They were set out to build a software project. And they just tried a bunch of experiments, and they learned things along the way. And a lot of us who were observing this learned things along the way as well. And they started building out their different bodies of knowledge as well. And the body of knowledge is extensive. We have all of these types of things going on. I mean, these are just a few examples. I mean, over the years, we've seen how people have defined strategy, how events have been organized, how funding has been gathered to support some of these projects. There's a whole world around blogging, how you build out capacity, how you build buzz, how you manage a team, how you get together to sprint together. All of these different things have been learned over the years, but they've all been ad hoc. They've all been shared in relatively ad hoc capacities. So for those of us who are interested in community, what we've tended to do is expose ourselves, not literally, that would be terrible, to expose ourselves to that environment and to try and soak up those lessons in kind of like osmosis. And that's basically how it's worked traditionally. So back to informed trends. What I've just told you was bleedingly obvious, okay? To me, this is the sign of people who are talking, the sign of people who are sharing information. Often the things that they share are pretty obvious when you think about it, but you don't notice them, they're hiding in plain sight. But the informed trends, what's going on? What is the next thing that we're seeing? What's the informed trend that we can pull away from assessing these patterns? And to me, there is one key thing that we're seeing right now in the world of community. One key thing that's about to happen and that we're right at the beginning of. I believe that we're at the beginning of a renaissance in community management. And what I mean by this, so I'm not going to try and pull a Rommel right now, as he can only do the whole historical references in his slides. But what I mean by this is the Renaissance was seen by many as the connecting point between the medieval era and the modern era. It's when the ad hoc things that we'd learned of the past were documented in a structured capacity. People wrote books. It wasn't just science, it was art and it was music, and it was all kinds of different things. And what happened is that in this era, we started to educate each other. And the key thing about this was that in educating each other, we produced a repeatable science. So what would happen is you'd find somebody who discovered something in art or music, and they'd teach that lesson to somebody else, and that could be repeatable by them. And this is the way it works with anything. I mean, years ago, if you got sick, then you'd have some kind of bizarre recommendation. You've got to stand on one leg and scratch your left ear, and someone's got to punch you in the face with a branch, and then that'll get rid of your, I don't know, some horrible disease. But now, you go to Walgreens, you buy a tablet, you take it, and generally it will fix you. There are obviously blurry edges around the edge of that, but the concept of when you get sick and being able to resolve it is repeatable. And that was what the Renaissance provided for us in many ways. So I believe that what we're doing right now is we're starting to see that with community management. At the Community Leadership Summit at the weekend, we had over 200 people show up. The vast majority of these people work professionally as community managers. The previous year, a way smaller percentage of people working professionally as community managers. We're right at the beginning of this profession. We're seeing a group of people who are paid to understand and to grow community. And I'm absolutely delighted to see this profession growing, and I'm really passionate to help pursue this and push it forward. And that's the reason why I'm pleased that we're having our renaissance now. We're not having our renaissance in 10 years, because I think we're a particularly exciting time in technology. So what this naturally means is that there is this connection point between community and companies. And this is what my presentation is going to be largely about at 10:40 in room E145, okay? Is that when we start to get into an environment where we have a repeatable science, where we have repeatable experiences, you find companies who want to be able to repeat those in their world as well. So open source happens, everyone gets very excited, we start seeing the community flourishing all over the world, and we start seeing people who are able to repeat some of these things that are happening. We start seeing people who just have a certain flair with community. And naturally, companies want to hire those people. And this is where the profession is growing. But there are, of course, of all those big things that I threw up, of all those lessons, there are lessons that not only in terms of how we build a community, but how we interface with the company and how we balance expectations on either side. So, like I said, I have 15 minutes, and it's really hard to throw anything at the wall in 15 minutes. And the key lesson, when thinking about this presentation, I was thinking, I want to just get over one piece of information, because I'm not really going to be able to get over more than one piece of information in a short period of time. And that one piece of information in my mind is that we really are at the beginning of this renaissance. And I know many of the people in this room are interested in community and how we can harness community in the projects that we're a part of. And I believe that over the next 3 or 4 years, what we're going to start seeing is a solid body of repeatable work that we can share within our companies, within our projects, and with each other that's going to help us to push this forward. So, one final reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see more of these slides, you can see them, my friends. You just need to go there. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.